Hello, everybody. You know Catherine, but I don't know if you know me. My name is Blair Packham. I am a singer-songwriter, but also a radio host and longtime friend of Catherine Harrison's. We are also colleagues in that we write songs. Not together. We have to do that sometime.
Let's
But
do it.
it's my great honor to introduce Catherine and also ask some questions about her book, which we're here to celebrate the publication of. So if you would give a virtual a round of applause for Catherine Harrison.
Yay! Thank you. And I hope that you appreciate me making sure that the traffic and the parking were not an issue for you this evening. However, I cannot make any promises that we won't have technical glitches. As many of my friends know who are here tonight, I often do this in the middle of sessions. So if you see me do that, just wait. I will reanimate shortly.
Yes, she will. So I need to know how, if somebody, you're at a party, you're by the drinks table, knowing you, no, I'm joking. That's just because your mom's here. You're at the food table, eating wisely. Somebody says to you, so what is it you do? How do you encapsulate all the things you do into, a party friendly sound bite?
You know what? I often will say, wow, I don't know how to answer that question. I would probably say, I don't know when and with whom and how much would you like to know? So
which day of the week?
Yeah, which day of the week? Like for money, for fun. So, and then they usually say, stop messing around and answer the question. And I say, you know what? I run a performance consultancy based in the Toronto area, focus on behavior change, focus on performance, focus on mindfulness and accountability. I'm a musician and a songwriter and a fierce tree hugger. And now I'm an author. And, I'm a mom and a sister and a friend. And I do all those things like lots of people do, actually,
That's true. These days we live in the so-called gig economy, and people often have to do a variety of things. A lot of people don't like that, though, and you seem to thrive on it.
Yeah, I've always been that way, actually. I don't know if it's because of, well, it's, you know what? I should probably tie it straight to the book, Blair, shouldn't I? Which is the whole genesis of this book is it started with me reflecting on my very curious nature. And that leads me to be involved in many, many, many seemingly disparate things. But it's mostly because if something's interesting to me, I follow it. And I go, oh, that seems interesting, or that person seems interesting, or that looks, and I ask questions and I go a little bit deeper. And to my detriment sometimes, because I can get involved with way too many things. And like these days, and even now in particular, I'm pretty worn out. I've been doing lots of different things, and so, but that's what I thrive on is being fully engaged with lots of different things.
Somebody said to me that their father said to them before he passed, he said, the miracle is life. What more do you want? In other words, you're waiting for a miracle, in that case, for the father to, to be saved, and he was quite elderly. The miracle is the fact that we're alive at all.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that you live that.
I try to. I mean, not always, but there's a quote in the book and a subsequent song that I wrote many years ago about one of my favorite philosophers, Albert Einstein. And he said that thing, which is you can see everything as a miracle or nothing as a miracle. It's your choice, right? Similar thing, which is you can look upon things and think that everything needs to have a practical answer and it's all lined up, or you can see everything as miraculous and fascinating and worth exploration.
I have to say, having known you for quite a while, you're curious, but you're not intrusive. I have friends who are curious who ask every question imaginable, and they're curious too. I mean, there's no question. It's not just nosiness, but they also want to know personal details.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, who knows? Maybe we don't know each other well enough, but you.
Oh, I think we do.
Yeah, I think we probably do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very healthy curiosity that you have.
Thank you. Well, maybe that'll be my second book, which will called Taking Nosiness to the Next Level. And I'll dedicate it to you and all of your
All right.
friends.
Well, I'll actually name the friends. You can Sharon.
Oh, that
That's
would be fun, actually. Yeah, and send me headshots. We'll just it'll be a picture book.
Wouldn't that be funny? Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but wouldn't it be funny if Sharon's face suddenly appeared on the cover of the book and she didn't know, and
I
it
would
was
love
called
it.
Being Nosy by about Sharon? Anyway, that's a whole other story. Um,
Uh,
I'm curious about the title. Having read the book and enjoyed it immensely, I have a pretty good idea of what the title is about. But for anybody who hasn't read the book, what does that what does Three Colors, 12 Notes mean to you?
So in the book, in the section on originality, which I have often mused about as a creative person, and maybe you have too. I'm not sure if you ever have any sort of notion of imposter syndrome, or, oh, this chord series sounds like that, and somebody said, oh, that sounds like that Bowie song, and all of a sudden you think, oh my God, I riffed it, I stole it, I didn't actually write something. And so in musing about originality, I write that really I would assert that there isn't any originality, because all of the root elements of everything are the same. So every piece of artwork, from a 5-year-old finger painting to, the Sistine Chapel, can all be distilled into those three basic colors:
Mhm.
red, blue, yellow, throw in some black and white. And that all music, regardless of how it's organized, really comes down to the 12 notes, right? So what I think is originality is how an individual, through their own lens of experience and interpretation, and bringing their own authentic sense to something, creates and communicates in that way, as opposed to it being, well, that's not original or that is original. I'm uncomfortable with that notion of labeling something as original or not.
I see. Yeah, I think that the tightrope we watch as that we walk as creators is one of the many tightropes actually as creators is that of presenting the familiar as fresh. If you're a songwriter and you're writing about relationships, it's probably been covered in some other songs, but not exactly and precisely in the way that you're going to cover it. And so I think you do have to strive to make it fresh, if not truly original, because otherwise you are going to end up writing that Bowie song.
Yeah.
And if if you're not, I think you have to anyway. And I think you've done that with this book, by the way, which is great, because there are other books that speak to a number of these sentiments and these thoughts, but you coalesce them in a way that I find really refreshing.
Cool. Thank you. And I also think it's interesting, like, of course, fresh, because, there's however many billion of us now. Hopefully, we all do have our own experiences. They might be similar, but everyone has their own collection of experiences and things and nuances. So hopefully, if you allow that authentic expression to come through, it will be perhaps the same old love song, but in a fresh way. And also, I'm sure that you've talked about, we talked about all the in the studio interviews that were done over the years too, that what makes up a hit song, what makes the hook, is familiarity. Whether you know it or not, it's because you're like, oh, I dig that groove, or, oh, I love that thing. And there is, whether it's conscious or subconscious, there's a familiarity that makes it hooky,
But you've also got to give the brain something new that feels new,
That's
every
it.
time. Otherwise, we'd all just be doing Beatles songs or whatever,
Because, hey, they were pretty good.
They were pretty good.
If you're
Yeah,
going to learn a catalog, other than Blair Packham, I say go with the Beatles.
that's true. Learn mine after you've looked at the full Beatles catalog. That's my advice.
And
Anyway,
you know what? I would like to just also say, in my professional space, and I have many professional colleagues here. I can't see you all now, but I'm sure you're out there somewhere. I would assert the same thing, that you can be, there's not really any new way of leading human beings. There's not any new way of communicating effectively or listening actively, effectively. But there is a way that you can actually bring it into a context or a perspective that is fresh and that really connects with people or resonates with people. So it's the same kind of thing, like regardless of what it is that you're creating and communicating, I think there's opportunities to notice some of these opportunities.
Yeah, I think you're right. That brings up an interesting question. The book in its freshness to me, you know, because of your professional coaching, there's a certain amount of professional coaching in the book, and yet it's all combined with the creative stuff that you do. And so how do you, like, clearly in the book you didn't separate that. You know, I think a lot of people would, they'd separate their professional life with their artistic endeavors, but you don't do that. How do you square that?
Well, how I square it is that for a very long time, up until I would, maybe even in the last year, Blair, I'm not even sure. It's definitely within the last 2 years. But up until very recently, I was quite explicit and made very conscious choices about separating the various parts of myself, right? There's, you know, there's the artsy Catherine, there's the musician Catherine, there's the tree hugger Catherine, then there's the corporate Catherine, then there's the friend Catherine. And not only is it exhausting to try to remember, like, well, what hat am I wearing? And, oh, do I do this here? But I also concluded, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, I took the time that was afforded us and the first couple of weeks to really think, like, am I really walking the talk when it comes to the philosophy of my company, which really asserts that whole human beings show up in the workplace?
I think it's all good. You were going to finish your sentence about how not separating your various personas.
Well, I did, and too bad for you because you didn't hear it. So, no, I'm just kidding.
So we'll never know.
We'll never know. It went into the black hole. No, so I used to be very explicit about separating them, and then I just decided, you know what? I don't care. I don't care if that's my mother trying to listen to something on a device. That one moment, please.
What Catherine's trying to say is she doesn't care, and she wants to. I think she's going to use the word authenticity. Personally, that's my feeling.
I'm not going to, just because you said that.
Because I think it's more authentic to present all of you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's scarier and it's riskier. But I've just decided that that's just the way I'm going to roll from now on.
And it depends on the corporate culture too. If we're talking about actually at a job, but as a freelancer and as a professional coach, I think you can absolutely take that risk, because if somebody decides they don't want to work with you because you're real, then I suppose they should go on anyway. You know? Well,
and actually, though, Blair, many of my clients are in the corporate space where there is still a relatively prescriptive narrative. Right. And I've just decided that you'll hire me because you're okay with this, or you won't, or we'll date for a while and then realize maybe it doesn't work out. But I think there's a lot of people out there who are interested in connecting with and exploring whole human beings in the workplace. And they have to these days, particularly with how rapidly evolving and shifting everything's going on. If you don't recognize and appreciate what's happening to all of your employees up, down, and across the food chain in their lives right now, with whether it's financial insecurity or health insecurity or who knows, you know, time to have a good hard look in the mirror, I think.
I agree. I just have a few more questions for you, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Why, with this long list of accomplishments and pursuits, why write this book?
Well, I was writing bits and pieces over the past couple of years anyway. You know, I write in my journal every morning. I write songs. So, you know, as a lyricist, a lot of this is you could just bundle all your lyrics together and you'd have a book of sorts, right? And so I had been writing various stories. I had seen a few books that I thought were really cool over the last few years. And I thought, I'm just going to start writing a bunch of stories and, you know, throw them in my virtual shoebox, as I was referring to them. And then last year about this time, I thought, could I actually string them together in a cohesive way to make a book? And I started doing that and piecing it together and sending it out to some friends to say, you know, what do you see? What do you like? What don't you like? What's working? What's not working? And thank you to all those friends, because they really helped shape the original manuscript. And then when the pandemic happened, 90% of my plans for the year shifted. I was supposed to be traveling quite a bit, and obviously that changed. And I just thought, well, let's just jump in and focus on the book. And then I just happened to be telling my cousin about this, who lives out in Vancouver. And he said, well, I see Jesse up there or down there or somewhere. And he said, if you've written a book, a nonfiction book, you have to talk to my friend, Jessie. She runs an amazing book company out here in Vancouver. And I, of course, said, give me your number. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to find her myself. And so I did. And Jessie and I had a great conversation. And I was just so impressed with the way that Page Two supports their nonfiction authors. And I was smart enough, as I have been throughout my musical career as well, to just say, I have to partner with people who actually can tell me what to do. I know nothing about this space. I need some support. I need some expertise. And one of the best decisions I've made all year, that's for sure, is to partner with Page Two and that whole team. So
That's fantastic.
yeah.
I have more questions for you, but I think maybe we should have a little musical interlude.
Okay. Did you like that picture of you, Blair?
Not particularly. I don't like me in white t-shirts, but that's me and my vanity. I want to talk about you, though. We can talk about me in a white t-shirt any other time.
Let's plan a separate event altogether.
Okay.
Where Blair will wear a series of white t-shirts.
Yeah, and we'll talk about why I don't feel comfortable in them. I'm curious. Well, curious, isn't that apt? One of the testimonials for 3 Colors, 12 Notes it calls the book. It says it's a curious little book, which I think is a really interesting way to describe it. Not just that the book encourages curiosity, but also I think it goes about it in an unusual way that I referred to earlier. That, you know, it's a mix of memoir, of self-help, of professional leadership coaching. So I'm curious who the book is for.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's for me. It might sound self-indulgent and a little odd to say that, but you know, that's why that Toni Morrison quotes in the book is, I wrote the book that I would want to read. And in fact, in speaking with my mom and in speaking with some of my other close friends who have spoken at length about those reflection exercises, I've said, like, I'm gonna go back and do those reflection exercises again, probably for the rest of my life, because hey, I'm a human and things happen and things change, and I think it would be fascinating to do that. And you're right, I definitely dovetailed my my coaching approach in the book, because by definition, I think you have to be curious to be a good coach, right? You have to really genuinely be interested in what's going on in another's perspective and in their mind, and how they're seeing things and how they're unpacking things and how things are working out well or maybe not so well. So that notion of genuine curiosity and reflection and supporting each other through that exploration, I think all goes hand in hand.
I agree. So the book's memoir-esque, the book celebrates your curiosity,
Yeah.
and that's great. But I'm wondering how you can And by the way, I got a lot out of it, very much so. But I'm wondering if you were describing it to somebody at this party that I talked about earlier, where you're at the food table, um, why is curiosity important? Like for other people, it's great to read about you and your exploits and your experiences and your thoughts on things, but why is it important for other people to develop and maintain curiosity throughout life?
Well, I mean, I think of right now with the rapid amounts of change and uncertainty that we are all facing. Humans, by definition, like as you said earlier, they like novelty, but they don't necessarily like change. And I think that when we are faced with uncomfortable change or uncertainty, particularly, rapid and quite complex uncertainty, cultivating and leveraging curiosity actually gives us a more positive perspective, which is instead of trying to stay anchored to something, like I want it to be certain and I want it to be this, you can begin to notice and to observe and to ask questions like maybe where might I have some certainty in my life, even though sometimes I feel pretty overwhelmed, I feel like everything's rocked. Is utilizing curiosity helps us manage change, I think, a little bit better, manage uncertainty a little bit better, and actually celebrate uncertainty, right? If everything was so certain, we wouldn't explore, we wouldn't innovate, we wouldn't create, we wouldn't write any new songs because, hey, Beatles, why bother?
It's been done.
Yeah.
And yet life is going to change anyway. Whether you like it or not. There are people who are very conservative about saying yes to life and about their own experiences, and they stick to tradition very firmly. And I think that's a way of managing change. I think it's a way for them to manage change. But as I say, change is going to happen anyway. So it seems to me that this is yet another one of these tight wires, one of the that we have to walk, between change and stability or tradition, another word like that.
Yeah. All true.
You talk about saying yes. You emphasize the power of saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
To opportunities, to things that come your way. But you also make a point of saying you have to learn how to say no. When do you know? How do you know?
Well, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it takes practice. I didn't write this book in my 20s, so I probably did a lot of yes to the wrong things, no to the wrong things. Who knows? I don't know. So you do begin to learn. I think part of it is that exploration of deepening your knowledge of self, which again can sound kind of self-indulgent or navel gazing or first worldish, but when you start to get really clear on what's important to you and you begin to make choices that are aligned with what's important to you, I think it becomes easier to know, even though I might feel a little uncomfortable, this is a good thing for me to say yes to, and even though this is a little uncomfortable, this is a good thing for me to say no to. Right? So you do begin to learn what are the boundaries that I need to put in place to enable me to live, in a place of well-being and service and fulfillment. And, what are things that I need to say yes to more often that actually bring some of that, good mojo into my life and experience into my life too.
I do think that there are things that we are asked to do or we decide to do or decide to try that aren't instantly gratifying.
Yeah.
After doing them for a day or an hour or whatever the period is, we might decide, no, okay, no, I'm not enjoying this. But it's also very possible, I find, if you just keep doing it for a while, you actually come to love doing that thing.
Yeah.
I've never reached that point with running, for instance, but I would love it if I ever actually did it.
But so that's the thing, you need, if that was like, I want to, learn to love running, you could just get curious about what is it about running that I feel that it's such a cool thing to explore, and what else might also bring me some of the value of running, but mitigate some of the pain. I don't run anymore. I used to love running, but everything hurts when I run now, so I just don't do it.
That is a problem, and you have to learn how to say no, as you say.
Yes, exactly. Hey, Blair, I would love to, I kind of made this call out earlier, but I would love to ask Jesse from page 2, if she's willing to just hop on board and just celebrate her incredible team that helped me midwife birth this baby a couple of weeks ago, because I could not have done it without her. So
Fantastic.
Dave, could you, there we are.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's such a treat to be here. And of course, I'd rather be right there beside you, toasting you and clinking glasses, but it's pretty amazing to see all these faces showing up with smiles and excitement on your behalf. And I'm really grateful to say a few words. Thank you for opening up the invitation to speak about my team. I'm so proud of them. But we all know that we're here to support you, and without your vision and your diligence, we wouldn't be anywhere. So we're really, really grateful and very proud to work on your book. I wanted to say a few words about you. And it takes an incredible, publishing is an act of courage. I don't care what you're publishing. It takes a lot of courage to do it. And but it takes special courage to publish something so personal that's actually really meant to support other people. And that's exactly what you intended to do, and that's what you've done. I love how the word courage has the word cœur, French for heart, as at its root. And I wanted to say about you what I've learned in working with you, whether you're working, making art, making music, writing books, you do it with your whole heart. And I just love that. And my whole team love and admire and respect that about you. It shows in both the process, but also in the final result. I wanted to tell everyone on this call that you pursued the writing process and the publishing process with an artist's eye and a craftswoman's spirit. You were so curious about the whole process. And you were
Probably
there
to the bane of your existence.
But that is a beautiful thing. It's not a bane at all. It's something where we love to, that's true collaboration. That's true partnership. And we appreciate it. I wanted to just say your book is really true to your vision. And I know that I do believe that my team did beautiful work, but it was your ability to articulate that vision and to advocate for it all the way through the process while remaining very open to input. So I can only imagine the amazing work that you do professionally with your clients and also in collaboration through music and other things. So really, I have my water, which is a bit sad, but we are 3 hours behind you. I wanted to toast you and say, here's to Catherine, artist, coach, mentor, leader, and many other things, which you articulated before, and now author. Here's to you.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you for everything. I appreciate putting you on the spot and you doing that. It was, as I said, I couldn't have, as I said earlier to somebody, you know, if it had just been me and I hadn't met Jessie and her whole team, I would have done the Jerry Maguire thing. You know, I would have just bound it all together, gone down to Kinko's, printed it off, and started handing it out from my car. That would have been it. So thank you, Jessie, and a big shout out to Page 2. What an incredible company. So I really appreciate that. Did we want to open up any questions? I haven't actually been looking at the chat because I've been trying to look at my dear friend Blair and be fully present for him. Do we want to maybe answer any questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions, folks, feel free to type them in the chat, and we can sift through them and find the ones that Catherine's not afraid to answer. What are you so afraid of, Catherine? I'm joking. But well, there is a comment, the Deepak quote, uncertainty is your path to freedom.
Yeah.
What would you tell us about that?
So that is a quote from a book that he wrote called Path to Love, which I read many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, a long time. I might have been living in Vancouver actually at the time. And as someone who I know it might not seem that way when you look at me doing all these things and trying new things and all, all the adventurous things, but, I love certainty. I love, knowing what's going to happen. I love having that sense of control. So when I read that line, uncertainty is your path to freedom, I was like, what? Are you out of your mind? And then it made so much sense to me that you aren't actually free if you are tethered to certainty all the time. If you know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen, with who, then you are tethered to certainty and you are actually disabling yourself from being free, which, I'm like at my core, I think freedom and feeling free and independent to, fully be is, if I had to pick one thing, that's probably it. And so it seems kind of incongruent to uncertainty, but that line really kind of shook me. And it's been a touchstone for me ever since. When I get fixated on the way things should go, or I feel uncomfortable, I think about, I don't have the freedom if I'm not willing to accept the uncertainty.
That's very good. I have often noted, I haven't had a real job since 1985. So as a lifelong freelancer, I've often felt that in times of uncertainty, when maybe the economy goes bad, or maybe there's a worldwide pandemic, as if that would ever happen.
Silly.
Yeah, I know. And they would get it under control so fast. But, that someone who is a freelancer, someone, in that role is suited to dealing with things, whatever's thrown at them. You can land on your feet and you can think fast, and it's proven to be true actually for me. And but I have to say, not everybody's cut out for it. My sister lost her corporate job after being there for 20 something years, and she decided she would freelance, and she'd hang out a shingle as an HR specialist. And she didn't get any work. She didn't know how to chase down work. She had no idea. She didn't earn any money until she finally got another job about a year and a half later. And it was a very challenging time. So what do you say to people like that, like people who are not born to, or haven't learned maybe?
Well, I mean, I think that's where the self-knowledge and reflection time is so important, because maybe that's exactly what you're supposed to do. We need people in this world who do their job and do it well and stay in that lane and deepen their competency, and and that's okay, and that's great. I think that in and of itself is important to notice. Like, I experimented. That's not really that whole freelancing thing, not my jam. Cool. Now you know that about yourself, right? So I guess what I would encourage people is to leverage the uncertainty of trying, and then experiment. And it's also okay to go, yeah, that didn't work, so I'm going to try something else, or I'm going to go back and actually, maybe I'm going back to something with a new perspective, right? Maybe I'm going back to something with a new appreciation. That in and of itself is I think, is growth, is progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. I'm still figuring the freelance thing out, and I figure in another 10 or 15 years, I'll have it figured.
Well,
how do you retire when you're freelance? That's what I've got to figure out. I don't know how that.
What's that?
How do you retire when you freelance? I don't actually know. I don't know. Anyway, you in your visual, in your painting, but also in your music, you've chosen purple as a color, and the name of your company, Purple Voodoo. But as a guiding sort of color, is there a particular significance attached to the color purple for you?
Well, yes and no. I guess on the no, it's just something that it's such a dynamic, interesting color. So as a painter, I do gravitate towards, bold colors and swaths of color. But purple as a color that I connected the company to, and the work that I do, is that purple is the color of enlightenment. It's the crown chakra. It is the color of royalty. It's supposed to be this, nirvana-like aura. But it's also the combination of red and blue. And one of the things I believe strongly is in noticing the different parts of ourselves, right? Sort of, whether you believe in left brain, right brain or not, but whether there's different aspects of us that's that can be very logical, and conversely very emotional, that can be very creative, or can be very, analytical. And so the notion to me of purple combining the red and the blue, and encouraging people to both notice the different parts of themselves and celebrate them at different times, but also collectively to notice within a team or within a family or within a community, how do you take a little bit of red and a little bit of blue and a little bit of red and collectively actually, make something better and more expansive and more enlightened. So that's where that purple shows up.
It's interesting to me as well that the guitar, the bass that spoke to you from the rack at Capsule Music wasn't purple. It was red.
It was. What a beauty, eh? Oh,
yeah, beautiful bass.
That's a 75 Music Master, sister of the Mustang.
Which was made by Fender.
That's right.
Quarter scale instrument, which means
yes,
it's good for its smaller hands and
little girl hands. Who I'm not. I always say I'm not a real bass player. So I like the compact nature of a short scale. For me, it made it easy for me to engage, and now I can play a full scale. But yeah, that's a sweet little thing, isn't she?
They used to make them with racing stripes on them.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, we have a question.
Yes.
David. Hi, Catherine. In your reflections on your life lessons through experiences, how long after the experiences do you find the lesson becomes illuminated for you? Great.
That's a great question. And I think it depends. Sometimes it takes decades. Sometimes not quite done. And sometimes in a flash, you go, oh, key learning there. So I think it really depends. And it depends, as I said earlier, on the level of, I think, maturity. And I don't mean chronologic maturity, but I mean the maturity of your ability or willingness to reflect on your own stuff. I was going to swear, but I thought, I don't know who might be offended. So sometimes it's in a flash, and that I do think that when you choose to become more present with yourself and the world around you, and you start to notice and observe and ask questions and be more genuinely curious, you do actually fine-tune that ability to connect to what works and what doesn't, and to be able to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff much faster as you go forward. I know that for me. I mean, there's plenty of things that I look back and go, oh my gosh. But you know what? As they say, if you know better, you do better. And lots of times there's no way around it but through it. So you got to go through life to get to the other side, as they say.
But it makes a lot of sense to me. I teach songwriting, as you know, and I emphasize editing, rewriting, and a lot of songwriters don't want to do that, especially if they're newer, because they feel like it will spoil the creation, and they're very precious about their creations, as they should be. I mean, they should be very pleased with themselves that they came up with this thing. I don't think they should be afraid to rewrite or rework, because they can always go back to where they were, for one thing, but also you're learning by doing it what works for you. You're learning those things that that David was asking about. How do you know? How do you know when a song is done? Well, you know by doing it, and eventually your own aesthetic, your own sense of what works for you becomes more prominent in your process. And
Yeah.
I think you're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I think I allude to this in the book, that sometimes a creative thing isn't done, and that's okay. Like the process is done, and you go, you know what? And then so actually the song that we listened to at the very beginning of the show, when I went into pre-production with my friend Mike Burkowski, you probably know Mike, that was a song that we actually cobbled together from 3 different songs. We said, oh, this chorus is great, and then this bridge is cool, and this verse, and we just kind of went, well, what if we did this, and then kind of cut and pasted it all together, and then so those other parts of those songs they were now just sort of on the cutting room floor, and that was okay. You know, I had to get away from the preciousness of that was such a great lyric. I can't believe it's not being used. I have to go, well, it's not serving the whole song, or maybe it's not serving the listener. I'm getting a little too self-centered and egotistical if I have to force fit it into this thing, right?
Well, and your job as a songwriter and as an author too is to connect with other human beings.
Yeah.
Even though you wrote the book for yourself, and I'm sure you write songs for yourself, but the part of the job is to connect with other people. And if the song isn't working for whatever reason, then you fix it. You make it speak more somehow.
Yeah.
Depends on the song, obviously.
Yeah. And also to recognize that art is subjective by nature, so that you can in fact do your best to convey what you wanted to convey and have it land with other people who also, dig it and it resonates. And at the same time, accept the fact that there'll be lots of people who say, yeah, I don't like that. And that's cool too.
There'll also be lots of people, in my experience anyway, telling you what the song is about. And
yes.
And it wasn't when you wrote it, that wasn't your intention, but it's interesting. It is interesting to hear. I had a friend who wrote a song about her mother dying, and a woman came up to her at a show and said, I love that song. It saved our marriage, she said, gesturing to her husband. And, it's such a deep song about love in a partnership. And my friend was like, well, it's about love, but it's not anyway. So.
Yeah. But isn't that cool? Because it didn't really matter to that woman, to the listener. She got out of that song what she needed to get out of the song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, Sarah has a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned imposter syndrome. Is it really as easy as telling yourself there's no such thing as originality to shut those voices down?
No, it's not that easy. No, it's not that easy. And I think it's a lifelong endeavor. Again, it starts with cultivating and nurturing your ability to be present, your ability to notice, even to notice those voices, right? To notice, why do I feel uncomfortable here? Or I'm like, wow, I am really yapping at myself here and I am not talking nice. That's interesting. So where is that coming from? And choosing to stay with it a little bit longer, and also to challenge it. Like, I know in the book too, I talk about the stories that we tell ourselves, right? The mythical narratives that we have from the time we're born. So oftentimes the voices in our heads aren't even ours. They have been put in from family and from communities and from nations and from ideologies and from, that kid on the playground in 4th grade who stole my lunch pail and made fun of my blue cape and, all that stuff. So even choosing to become aware of that and recognize, like, doesn't make it easier. It doesn't, for me, I guess the voices don't go away, but you can put them in their place, I think, a little bit easier when you practice that skill.
When you practice recognizing them and addressing them. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
And finding people also, Blair, who you can be honest and have conversations, because the one thing about this whole notion is it's almost universal.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
The notion of the voice of
feeling somehow like, oh my God, I'm not as good as I think I am, or something. Just
narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths. I would say it is universal.
That's right. And we don't want to hang with those guys, so it's better to hang with just the rest of us.
I'm curious though, you were the one in the blue cape?
Yes, I was.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and you know what? Actually, it wasn't grade 4. This was a story that nearly made the book, but it didn't. But I had moved to would you like to hear the story, Blair? So when I was 10, about to turn 11, we had moved towns. And so I moved into grade 5, in the middle of grade 5. And as you can imagine, like 10-year-olds, whatever. And so tough to kind of transition. Anyway, so I had a birthday. My mother gave me this beautiful blue cape. It was royal blue on the outside and it has flowers on the inside, and it was beautiful. And I loved it. My mom said, you should wear it to school. And I was like, no, I don't think so, because I don't know how this is going to go down with these nasty new colleagues of mine. But nonetheless, we decided I would wear the cape on my birthday. And the young hooligans who I would later befriend, gave me the bumps in my cape in a mud puddle.
Oh,
And you know what? Like, I can feel the shame and humiliation to this day. Obviously, I brought up the blue cape in the middle of a book launch, for goodness sakes. So anyways, it's just very interesting you can recognize where those little voices come from. You know, sometimes in a new group environment, I feel like an outsider. I kind of feel like the girl with the blue cape. Like, you know?
right. Yeah. Well, these things definitely stay with you, and learning how to corral them and wrangle them, I think, is a very important skill to learn. Michael asks, which chapter took the most courage to decide to include, i.e., felt the most risky?
There were a few. I mean, the stories of patterns and triggers and, you know, familial stuff is always risky because it can come across as judgmental, and it's not. I do think it's really important, though, to just speak truth to, like, hey, you know, everybody's got it going on in one way or another. So that was a little risky. Certainly, you know, to share some of the heartbreak and experiences that I've had over the past couple of years. It felt really important for me, based on everything we've already talked about, to explore that and to look at it and to talk about it in connection with these other things, but also, you know, not have it come across as a, you know, TMZ tell-all. So there were, and even the sections on my son, I mean, I'm very thoughtful and respectful of his privacy. You know, I don't name him. I know a lot of people here know who he is, and but you know, some of those very personal experiences that I've had, it was really important for me to include them. But at the same time, it's like, okay, guys, you know, this, you know, together, Catherine, you might go, wow, she really wasn't all that together after all. And you know, that's the way it is.
I actually think that people, rather than seizing on those vulnerabilities that you expose, they admire you for exposing them and celebrate your fearlessness. And I suspect that if and when you do more writing, you'll probably be even more open, because you'll have had that reinforcement from people. Because
yes, that's true. And I will say, I wasn't fearless. There was plenty of fear. It was that I overrode it to be, you know what it was, is that the focus on freedom and self-expression and authenticity overrode the fear. So it was still there, but I kind of doubled down on those guys instead.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think that that will serve you moving forward. And I think anybody reading the book will be served by, you know, the example that you put forth. So yeah, it's terrific. Sarah has a question, which is, do you still have the cape?
No, I wish I did have the cape. I don't know if any of you saw my recent post on one of the social media things, but I was wearing the one-piece snowsuit the other day when we had a big snowstorm. I was so excited. That was my mom had that snowsuit. When did you have that, Mom? In the 90s, 80s? Bought it at Sporting Life in Toronto when the one-piecers were in, and we have had that. And my sister has one, so I still have that. And now I'm quite thoughtful about items. I try to, you know, cull the herd when it comes to just things. But man, I do wish I had that cape. I would have worn it tonight. Actually, I would have rocked that cape tonight.
You would have.
I'm on the lookout for another cape like that. Put it that way.
All right. Well, I think we have to wrap up.
Yeah. Can I just ask, producer man, can you take Blair, and I would love to get a screenshot of just all the Brady Bunch heads, because I haven't been able to see. I'm just gonna wrap up.
Stay in touch with you.
What's that?
People stay in touch with you.
So most people here know how to reach me because I reached you. and we do things all the time together. So you can reach me at my email, obviously, Catherine@purplevoodoo.ca, and CatherineHarrison.com, which is also peppered throughout the book. I'm going to keep all of the stuff associated with the book, the photos, the lyrics. We're posting a bunch of YouTube lyric videos with some of the songs in the book. Were from unreleased songs, so you couldn't actually listen to them. So we've been feverishly working to record some of them. So when you go to CatherineHarrison.com, on some of the social media links, you can go there and listen to the songs. You can see the photos and the paintings in full color like you did earlier today. And yeah, people they know how to reach me. And can I just give a big shout out to my friend Blair? As he mentioned earlier, he is an incredible songwriter. He's an incredible teacher. He's an incredible host. He does lots of great things, obviously gigging and freelancing, as we've already talked about. And he didn't bat an eye when I asked him to MC the event tonight. And so I just really wanted to thank you for making the time, Blair. As you guys all know, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of technical glitch removal to make this thing happen. And I also wanted to thank my producer, Dave, who's in the background, hiding behind the black cloak, who helped make this thing run as seamlessly as we could. And thank you honestly, this has just been terrific to be here and to chat with you about it. And I couldn't be prouder of it, honestly. Good night, everybody. Have a great day, Kevin. See you guys.